Hey, what is going on today, YouTube? Long time no see. Today's video is going to be a Q&A video about my Japanese learning progress and my journey, and several of y'all asked some questions last month, and I'm going to go ahead and go through those and answer those one by one. So we'll go ahead and jump on to the questions, and these were asked on my Discord group chat, which you can join down in the description below. The first question is by Banan, and he asked, how do I go? Well, he's got a bunch of questions, or they've got a bunch of questions, so I'm going to go ahead and go through all of those for the most part. The first one is, how do I go about mentally withstanding more hours of immersion per day? The hard part with immersion content lately is that I want to make the content, I don't want to just be randomly immersing if I don't have to. I would rather be immersing in content that I've consumed actively before. So the best way that I mentally, prepare for it is by curating the content beforehand and then immersing in it. That's for listening. For just watching, you've got to find, or at least in my experience, I have to find stuff that I am generally interested in, or else I will lose interest. And if you're not able to find that interesting content, then you're just going to lose focus and interest overall in the long run. So that is how I go about mentally withstanding more hours of immersion per day. And we'll jump on to the next question. How has Japanese changed your day-to-day life? So in my opinion, not too much other than the everyday study that I have. I try not to let it seep over into my, I would guess you call it my normal life. And it's kind of just like a hobby. You don't always let hobbies seep over into your day-to-day life. Obviously, I'm studying Japanese, but I'm not going to let it infiltrate or take over my life, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of just there as kind of a hobby, and if I need to use it on a day-to-day basis, maybe talk to somebody, someone wants to learn Japanese, or they want to discuss Japanese learning techniques, of course I can now discuss on that topic. But other than that, it doesn't really affect me on my day-to-day. And of course, when I run to the Japanese person here and there, it's always cool to exchange a couple of words. What is your favorite anime? So in case y'all don't know, my favorite anime is Re:Zero, and I've said that many times on my channel. Second favorite anime, I think this one was also asked. I don't know. I don't really have a second favorite anime. They're all kind of just even. So we got Demon Slayer, Attack on Titans, Dome Kano, Konosuba. They're just all slapped on two. So can't really answer that question though. Fourth question, when I read a digital manga and can't copy and paste words, how do I look them up? So there are these things on the internet called OCR scanners. I believe that's what they are. They're like OCR Japanese kanji scanners, and one that I use on my laptop is called Capture to Text, and it basically allows me to hover over or capture, basically like a screen capture, the text that I want to look up, and it'll do its best to decipher what the kanji is, and it'll pull up the text of it, and then you can just copy and paste that into Gshol or something like that. That is how I look up words. And on my phone, I use same type of thing, OCR scanner. I forgot what it's called. I believe it's called Kaku on the phone app, and it allows you to do the same thing. And yeah, that's on the phone. So that's how I read digital manga and can copy and paste words from those. Number 5. So this is a kind of a overlap between two questions that I got on Discord. It's, how did I go about time management being a student and learning Japanese? I know a lot of people out there are really busy either with a job, being a student, or with other life tasks. And the way that I did it was block out certain times of my schedule to dedicate to learning Japanese. And so in order to go about doing that for learning Japanese or for studying Japanese, I had to set. So for example, in the morning, I would wake up and generally do some Anki, or I'd spend 30 minutes, watching YouTube videos. That would be during, when I'm making coffee or when I'm just getting prepared for the day. And that's some time I can get into immersion content. During the day, what I would do is doing the best to optimize time. So if I'm walking between classes, or if there's a time I can use headphones to listen to audio, I would do that to optimize a little bit more time. And then later in the afternoon, maybe when I get back home from school and I'm done with classes, I would do some active study, but most of the time it was passive study, and just making sure that while passing my classes. I'm also getting some hours of immersion in. And also didn't help that I started learning Japanese in the most busiest years of my life in college, being my junior and senior year. So those did get a little bit hectic and did interfere a little bit with Japanese studies, as sometimes I just wasn't really motivated to pull up, hundreds of Anki or to do hours of immersion, but that got better over time as I did more Japanese. Additionally, if Japanese ever got too much, I would just stop doing it because it doesn't make sense either way to fail all your classes and learn Japanese, or not learn Japanese, or be demotivated to learn Japanese because you don't have enough time to do classes. And yeah, you don't want to be demotivated while learning Japanese, or else you just associate demotivation with Japanese and then you don't want to learn Japanese. The next question that I got was, when was the point you made the decision to dedicate this much time to Japanese? And it's very trivial, but I was watching this anime called ReZero and decided to go about learning Japanese after finishing season 2 of that. I believe that would be 2020 August or so, somewhere about there. And yeah, that was really kind of the turning point of learning Japanese. Of course, I had been consuming Japanese content, Japanese media beforehand in the form of music and in the form of, anime, of course, and then manga. But it wasn't really until then that I was like, you know what? This is the turning point. I'm going to go ahead and jump into learning Japanese. And so that was the point that I made this and dedicate this much time to Japanese. And at the same time, I roughly started the YouTube channel. So give or take, my YouTube channel started in September. I believe I actually started studying in the August of that year. And yeah, I don't know. The beginning date for me has always been flexible, August, September. Okay, and so one more fun question from Banan was, what other hobbies do you have besides Japanese? Other hobbies, in the past, I've done guitar. I really want to start picking up guitar again. I want to get back into learning guitar. I've had a guitar since I was like 9, but I've never actually really dedicated much time to actually learning the instrument. So I would like to do that in the future, to be able to play an instrument. I really like guitars. I grew up on like metal and heavy metal and rock and whatnot. Specifically electric guitar. So that's what hobby I have, kind of more or less. I play video games. I play a lot of video games. I used to do a lot more gaming before learning Japanese, and the biggest game that I play, or there were 2 big games. One was Dota 2, and then one is Smash Bros. Ultimate. And so I've spent a lot of hours on those games. And okay, so we're gonna go ahead and jump on over to another person's question. Cam with K, he's got a couple of questions here, and he asked, have you ever faced any self-doubt while learning Japanese, and if so, how did I overcome it? So of course I face self-doubt learning Japanese literally every single day. It's one of those little battles where it's gonna be there constantly, I feel, until I get to a very, very, very comfortable level. But the biggest self-doubt is always interpreting or misunderstanding stuff that I'm reading or listening to. The way that I kind of counteract that is just coming back to the content later on. I won't really care too much what my previous meaning that I had deciphered of said content was before, because that meaning might change in the future when I become better at Japanese. And so just learning to kind of not focus on the misinterpretation, or just learning to becoming comfortable, I guess, with that ambiguity, the whole refold methodology type thing on that, being comfortable with the ambiguity of the Japanese part and comprehending it is how I've overcome it. I don't really have any specific strategies, unfortunately. There's always a little bit of that kind of like, oh, am I doing this right? Am I understanding correctly? And yeah, of course I can always decipher it in English as well, so that helps with it. Yomi-chan is a great way to do that. And yeah, that's one tool that I use on a day-to-day basis. The second question that he asked is, what's the hardest challenge you have faced so far, are facing, and think you will face going forwards with Japanese? Okay, so I'll start with the past one. What's the hardest challenge I have faced so far? I think the hardest challenge that I've faced so far is going monolingual. This is probably going to be our facing. So the biggest challenge that have faced is going monolingual, and that is just because I feel like it's a pretty big jump in my opinion, because when you go away from the whole bilingual dictionary, you start going to monolingual, it gets very time consuming and very long and tedious sometimes. So for example, I am reading a visual novel, but trying to do monolingual on that was pretty crazy because I would be able to decipher like one sentence. Like there's a sentence with like 5 different words that I didn't know. I would probably spend like 5 to 10 minutes on that sentence because all of these different definitions that pop up in the dictionary, I keep looking up words and more words and more words in monolingual, and that just gets very hard. And so though the monolingual transition is the hardest challenge that I've faced so far and am facing, that's just going to come with more time in the language. And then what's the hardest challenge that I think we'll face moving forwards in Japanese? I think it's probably going to be along the same lines is the whole monolingual thing. But yeah, once I don't really foresee too many challenges with it, because the whole language learning thing is more of a marathon instead of a sprint. And so it's kind of like slow and steady progress, day by day. It's going to get me to the goal to where I want to. And so I don't think that's too hard. Just showing up every day, consuming immersion content, and progressing on a day-to-day basis. I don't think that is too hard. It's more or less just time consuming. And number 3, do you have any favorite experience reading, watching something which you wouldn't have if you hadn't started learning Japanese? At the current moment, no, I don't think I've really had anything like that. The big reason is because a lot of the content that I read/watch, I've consumed in English, so I already kind of know what happens based on the English translation of it, like animes, mangas, and whatnot. So I hope to have something like that in the future. Definitely hope to have something like that because I believe there are a lot more, there are a lot more native texts that don't have good English translations. So I preferably like to be able to consume that type of content sometime in the near or far future. And so those are all the questions that Cam with K had. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to the next person. The next person is or was Rin. And he asks, how do you do Anki at 12 in the morning? Okay, I think he means 12 in the morning, midnight. So how do I do Anki at midnight? Well, I'm a late sleeper, so oftentimes I'm going to sleep at like 3 or 4, and it's not really good. So I'm trying to change that sleep schedule. But that's the big reason, is that the time that I do Anki compared to when I sleep is pretty far off. And so if I am feeling tired, I just drink coffee and then do Anki. So it's not a good habit, but that's how I do Anki at midnight. 2 is, have I ever thought about learning a dialect? At the current moment, unfortunately not. I guess the dialect that I'm learning is Tokyo dialect, the standard. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it, but maybe in the future I'll probably think about picking up a dialect, but that's one thing that I don't really have on my goals or on my plate yet. 3, how much immersion do you average daily? So unfortunately lately it hasn't been that much, but when I was really serious, or when I go through times when I have more time, I will spend anywhere between 4 to 5 hours a day doing immersion study. Currently, at the current moment, I think I've only been doing probably like 2 hours. I think I'm just slacking on that, so I'm gonna pick up the pace on that and do a little bit more immersion. So number 4, what content have I immersed with in the most over the years? So the content that I've immersed with the most is probably gonna be V0, and then it's probably gonna be V0, Rent a Girlfriend, Dome Kano, and then I don't know, just random like news articles online, and then lately it's been the Fruit of Grisaya on the visual novel side of things. Last question he asked is, how is my hair so damn godly? Well, I don't know, but it's just built like that, so it's gotten really long. I don't know if I plan to cut it soon, but you know, I don't really take care of it. Kind of just wash it and that's it. I don't even really use conditioner, but I don't know, it's just like that. And those are all the questions from Rin. Lynn Ryan had a question, but I answered this one a little bit earlier. It was, how do I balance schoolwork and Japanese? And so, like I said earlier, I try to have a routine and a schedule set so that I know when I want to go about studying Japanese, and so that I'm not just doing random weird studies here and there. And then Roxelle John on my YouTube post asks, why did I start learning Japanese and where would I place my level? So why I started learning Japanese, that was the V0 question. And where would I place my level? So on the JLPT scale, I would probably place my grammar at like N4, but then my vocab probably around N3, just around that N4 N3 range. And so I've got a lot of work to improve upon, and I'm focusing on trying to get a set schedule to where I can reach that JP1K goal, that JLPT N1 goal that I had for this year. And yeah, that's kind of where it is at the current moment that I think. I haven't done any official testing or whatnot on that. And so that is all of the questions that I received on my Discord and on my YouTube channel. And another video like this will be coming out in the future. If you're watching this video and had any questions on my Japanese journey, or just anything in general, feel free to comment down below or join the Discord. And when I want to do a next Q&A video, I'll go ahead and ask on the Discord group chat. So if you watched this video, thank you so much. I do plan on coming with some more videos on in the future. There are a bunch of conversations that I haven't yet released that I did last year for speaking on Italki, and then one on Hanayoku. So I do have those up in the books to record and get published. And so that'll be coming out as well. Additionally, I've been doing content on TikTok, which is probably why I haven't been as active on YouTube, but I think I'm finding a way to be able to get content on both there and then here at the same time, which you may have seen in the YouTube shorts. And so we'll see more content coming out in the future. And as always, good luck with your studies out there, and I'll see you again in a future video.